Hello and welcome. I'm your host, Elizibar. This is a book. It's Batwoman, Supergirl, World's Finest, 100-page giant. Let's see, how many words is that? Batwoman. Oh, there might be the word comic in here too, because some of the old ones were like 100-page comic giant, so there might be an implicit comic in here too. But anyway, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 100. So that's 6, 7, 8. The title is 8 words long. Why don't you just have World's Finest 100-page giant, and then you can pair up whoever you want, and you have an ongoing that people can rely on that will have like these team-up stories in it. That would be fun, right? Am I the only one that thinks that would be fun? Whether you're teaming Batman and Superman, or Batgirl and Supergirl, or in this case, Batwoman Supergirl, which seems like a weird combination to me. Like, you tell me you're going to team Supergirl up with someone, I'm thinking you're going to team her up with, Superman, or Power Girl, or Wonder Woman, or Batgirl. Like, teaming her up with Batwoman, where does that even come from? Have these two even ever teamed up in a comic book outside of this? I'm trying real hard to remember, and I am totally coming up blank. It doesn't help that I think Batwoman is basically the most boring of all Bat characters, next to the Signal, who is a literal who. Like, you live in a world where you've got, one, two, there's like 4 Batgirls or something now. Like, it's ridiculous. And what do we need Batwoman for in that world? I understand. Oh, but she's got a different background or whatever. Who cares? Oh, she had a tragic life-altering event. Guess what? So did literally everyone else. So here in this, there's 3 new stories and 3 old stories in this book. The first new story is the only time they really team up, and they start off like in most team-ups, fighting each other. Because why not? You have a crossover or a team-up, the heroes have to fight each other. Halfway through the fight, they realize they're not the enemy, and then they go and they beat up the actual enemy. It's exactly the same story here. The enemy is Alice, which is Batwoman's sister or whatever. There she is, see her, and nobody cares. Alright, moving on. The art's fine. I want to point that out. The art's fine. The story itself is okay. The next story is a new story, and it's all about Batwoman infiltrating some company, and da-da-da-da-da. No one cares. She doesn't like this little statue. In fact, when she's breaking back in as Batwoman, here, she makes a point of knocking it over and stomping on it. Also, what is with this pose? Who leans that far over when they're running? Like, okay, an Olympic sprinter, maybe, like when you're coming right out of the gates, but you usually don't stay hunched over at essentially what's a 90-degree angle. Now, it is a super dynamic pose, so I gotta give them credit for picking a pose that's exciting looking. Maybe it's the camera, but that looks like she's leaning way, way too far over. In fact, I'm not sure how her back can, sustain that, because she's hinged over at 90 degrees at the hips, and then she arches up like this. Hold on, let me get a piece of paper. I'll draw this out for you. Let me... Stay right there, book. This is what she's doing. Alright, so she's got one leg like this. She's got another leg like that. Her back, right here, is like this. And then it goes like this, so that her head can be here. And she's got an arm doing like that, and another arm out this way. That doesn't matter. You tell me, whose back can do that while they're running? Seriously. Alright, moving on. This story should have been like a home run. This should have been like an easy story to be like, oh, this is cool. It's great action. Because they're like experimenting on people, see? We got a hostage. Like, there's some cool stuff going on. But I didn't care. The Supergirl story that follows it up is kind of interesting. I don't necessarily like the art too much. There's something about it. It feels real flat. She feels like she's cut out and pasted onto most of these panels. But it's kind of interesting because it's all about how she can't keep her regular job down, and her cousin has to has to hook her up with a real job at Star Labs. It's kind of interesting from that perspective. But it also feels like filler because literally nothing happens. It's just kind of like an introduction to the character. But hey, we get back to some Batwoman stuff here, and I don't care. Now, there are some cool pages in this. Like, these are some dope looking pages, and I really like the way they look. They just absolutely do nothing for me, aside from looking cool, because she's a dumb character. This is my opinion, not a statement of fact. You are free to think what you want, and that's cool. The Supergirl story that follows that up is actually kind of cool, even though it deals with that dumbest of all things, a Kryptonian refugee. Like, how many of these Kryptonians are there out there? I mean, this one's a werewolf, which is kind of cool. But how many Kryptonians are hanging out there, and they all end up on Earth? Really? Really? Having said that, there's some great action, but the greatest part of all of this, and this isn't like the end of the story because there's like 4 or 5 more pages, but she actually talks him down a little bit. You only survive because you're in the Phantom Zone. She's actually talking him down, and I really appreciate that. Instead of it just being a story of brute power, it becomes a story of, hey, let's talk about it. Let's hug this out, for lack of a better phrase. And it was actually pretty darn effective because of that. Because you can only read so many stories of super strong person punches super strong person before they all seem the same. But super strong person fighting super strong person, talking them down to reduce the damage around them, that's kind of fun. You know? That's exactly the kind of thing that Superman and Supergirl and all them are supposed to do. And then we got another like Batwoman story where Batman is creepy stalking her, and this is trash. I don't really like the art. I don't like the story. I find nothing redeemable. Now, of course, I'm sure somebody out there really loves that story. And you know, if that's you, more power to you. It just does not appeal to me one bit. I feel like Batwoman's kind of like a two-dimensional character. I have issues. So does everyone else. You know, when a character's like, the only thing they have going for them is my inner torment, which is basically all I feel like Batwoman has. Like, my sister is a villain after tragic childhood event. Guess what? Tragic childhood event has been done for Batman, all the Robins. Not Batgirl, actually. At least the original one. I forget about Stephanie. And I don't remember if the Dark Knight Returns Robin had a tragic backstory, but I just assume she does. But, like, you are just like the 27th person with Bat in their name at this point. All of you have, or I guess Bat in your name, 27th member of the extended Bat family. There we go. And all of you have tragic childhood trauma. Can we please have one, aside maybe from Batgirl, who does not have tragic childhood trauma? That would be interesting. If it turned out that Batwoman was actually like a fairly self-adjusted person who was just very self-motivated into using her skills to stop evil or something, like that would be a much more interesting character. But as it is, I don't know. I it doesn't work for me. All right, I've talked way too much about that, and this has turned into less a look at this book than it has me just ranting about Batwoman. I apologize for that. I give this book like, I don't know, a 2 out of 6. Because there's 6 stories in here, and like 2 of them worked pretty well for me, and the other ones were just kind of eh. So there we go. It feels kind of like a waste that this was published, and I really think DC is missing something here by not just having like an ongoing World's Finest team-up 100-page giant book. That would be pretty dope. Like, you could put in all kinds of stories there out of 70 years of DC canon. Like, 80 years? What, 90? Let's see. 1930s, like, to 19... or to the 2020. Yeah, it's all, this is like 90 years of stories to draw upon. And there's lots of great team-ups in that stuff. I think I used like, did I use Green Arrow, Green Lantern? Like, that was a whole series. You could just pull stuff out of that and stick it in here. Now, granted, you'd be going, oh, but that's like old school 70s art style or something. But That's some really classic stuff. And, I think that's something else that DC's kind of missing the mark on is they don't really dip into their extensive well of classic material when they're filling these books out. It's all from like 2000 or later. I think the Swamp Thing book had some older stuff in it that went all the way back to like the first run of Swamp Thing in the 70s. But that's kind of the exception. Maybe they don't think that modern audiences buying these books would care about those old stories, but there's so much like contradicting stuff in what they're publishing now because you've got Rebirth, New 52, stories from the mid 2000s, and the original story or the original material that they're creating just for these, and it all conflicts because none of them are canon with each other. So it's not like we have a established, stringent, canonical set of rules that we're supposed to be following here. I'm ranting. I'm going to see you all later. You have a great day. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. I sure hope to see you again next time. And yeah, bye-bye.